The basic premise behind this channel is that psychoanalysis should be free. And in 2 videos we tried to explain what exactly is meant by this. But so far we haven't gone more deeply into the question of where is the position of money in psychoanalysis? How can it influence whatever is going on in the consulting room? And one perfect spot to open this discussion could be this brief series of videos about the notion of resistance. Because money, financial transactions, can be a very important sign of resistance in psychoanalysis. I would like to address a wider level first, and that is the position of psychoanalysis in the society as a whole, not necessarily the work of the 2 persons of an analyst and a patient. Psychoanalysis has for decades been focused on societal, political, and economical issues, and it has been some sort of a force inside of the critical movement thinking. There was one person who was called a socialist psychoanalyst. There was psychoanalysis that was connected to the Soviet Union, to the Communist International, and so on and so on. In the last decades, to the best of my knowledge, this has all disappeared. And psychoanalysis is not an important voice when the debates of this or that kind in contemporary Western societies are being held. I can't remember the most recent example when a psychoanalyst was invited or was consulted when a major decision related to various societal trends was made. I'm afraid one of the reasons, and possibly an important reason for this, is that there's too much money in psychoanalysis nowadays. Psychoanalysts easily earn enough money that they are losing motivation to be a revolutionary, subversive force that will criticize or demonstrate or try to make any sort of troubles to the establishment. This may be more present in those countries where health insurance is an important source of money for psychoanalysts who work with patients. This is present in different countries to different extent, but probably no one wants to criticize the source of his or her comfortable life. So the efforts of Erich Fromm or Wilhelm Reich or the so-called Frankfurt School are behind us, and we're not focused on that. But it is possibly more interesting when it comes to the place of money in the individual work between the analyst and the patient. Along the way, so to say, I've heard many different things patients say about this. From, you certainly like those who pay more, to, I have forgotten and I will pay next week. There is a lot of belief, there is a widespread belief that psychoanalysts, psychotherapists prefer patients who can pay more to patients who can pay less. And whenever I encounter something like this, I think exactly the opposite is going on. If someone is willing to work with you for a reduced fee, it means there's some curiosity in this person about working with you. So I wouldn't feel worse, I would even feel better. But when it comes to resistance, there are 2 types of situations, I think. There are places, societies, where paying in cash is something normal and expected, and there are places, societies, where patients pay by bank transfers or via giving the analyst a check. And these 2 situations are different in many respects. One of them is, if the patient pays in cash, then money goes from one hand to the next. And in that sense, it becomes an analytic material of the first rate. It could be seen as a reward. Its absence could be seen as a punishment. The patient can make a mistake and give you more. The patient can make a mistake and give you less. The patient can forget. And the analyst also has to face many questions and make many decisions. Am I going to count the money immediately while the patient is still there? Am I going just to take the money and put it into the wallet or into the drawer or wherever? And so on. And this situation is something that the resistance, now I'm mythologizing it, but that the resistance can use to express itself. So think of a patient who pays regularly after each session or at the end of the week, and then once all of a sudden he or she has forgotten. This does not have to be necessarily, but this can be a sign of resistance. The patient was hurt by something, felt neglected, felt hurt that the analyst has forgotten a certain thing, or wants to push the analyst away so that the insight will not be reached, and something like that. As this happens once, we should not react immediately and jump and start working on this. But if this comes in a cluster of possible signs of resistance, the patient is late, which is unusual, the patient is more silent than is usual, there are no dreams and such stuff, then this will deserve exploration. Or if resistance repeats and the patient forgets to pay Monday and then Wednesday and then Friday and then Monday next week, then probably something is going on. Another situation completely, if there is no cash but the patient pays other ways. Because again, the patient can forget and postpone, and again the analyst has to decide how to react to this. Whether the analyst is going to issue an invoice or not, these are all the questions. But a specific problem can happen if the patient is accustomed to paying in such a way that it is not even discussed whether the analyst is going to pay his or her taxes or not. And if in a society where this is a rule, this is something that's expected, the patient is asked to pay cash, or if the patient pays another way for, say, 2 years and then is asked to pay cash, then something can start going on an unconscious level. First of all, how can the analyst believe that it's possible to treat the patient well if the analyst knows that he or she is at the same time doing something that's against the law? And then how can the patient trust the analyst that the analyst will focus on the patient's benefit ethically and so on, if it's obvious that on the financial side the analyst is breaking the law? So this also has to be discussed. This also has to be brought into the discussion and be treated as analytic material, or otherwise could be an important source of resistance. So again, this is a brief video and it is not possible to summarize everything, but basically from the very beginning, from the initial discussion about how much the session is going to cost, to the method of payment, to the timing of payment and so on, to the feeling of possible reciprocity in the financial and social status of the analyst and the patient, all of these could be the source of resistance, and all of these could be the sign that there is resistance going on, and they cannot be seen only as a financial transaction. They should all be seen as analytical material as well.